All right, so in this video, we're going to talk about some of the environmental effects of modern agriculture, kind of the post-Green Revolution agriculture that we have been talking about in class. So we're going to be talking a lot about land cover change, also called deforestation, desertification, a lot about some sustainability issues related to water and soil usage, reductions in biodiversity, and other things that are being kind of caused by a lot of the effects of commercial agriculture across the world. So one thing that we see as a big conflict or a big result of kind of modern primary sector activities is deforestation. So in this map, you can see on the top one, kind of a map of the world's forests. We have the more tropical rainforests here at this latitude, kind of in the equatorial latitudes. Then we have the more conic forests in Canada and the United States and Russia and some within Central Europe and Asia. So, and on the bottom, you can see a kind of by country at a national scale, what in terms of the scale of analysis, the forest area as a share of land area. So deforestation is happening across the world, but really in a lot of specific areas. So we're going to look at kind of another map in here that is specifically where land cover loss is happening. But it's happening for a variety of reasons. For one thing, just urbanization and development, being converted into urban areas, being converted into human habitat. So we have kind of the reduction of forested lands within countries for that reason. Also, other sort of primary sector activities like logging and mining, but also agriculture and both subsistence and other types of agriculture, maybe like plantation or even commercial agriculture, we see contribute to deforestation. So for one thing, specifically kind of shifting cultivation. So we can see, and specifically in less developed countries and kind of in a lot of these areas, the tropical areas, shifting cultivation is the primary, or one of the primary, but and probably mostly the primary form of agriculture within these countries. More traditional agriculture use and kind of conflicts within those areas. Also, a few things like natural disasters, kind of increasing amounts of fires because of climate change. We see a lot of deforestation. So we're going to look at another map within class of kind of where this is happening. But two specific examples that are important. For one thing, the Amazon rainforest, where they've lost about 17% of forests in the last 50 years, mostly to convert for cattle ranching, so a very specific type of more kind of commercialized agriculture within that area. And the other example I always use and talk about is Madagascar, which used to be mostly all forest, lost about 90% of its original forest since human habitation, but more recently it lost about 40% in the last 50 years. So you see dramatic deforestation occurring in a lot of places like Madagascar, a lot of countries in Southeast Asia where palm oil and other sorts of plantation style agriculture are huge economic draws as well. And within this, within kind of the deforestation, we have seen kind of going with that, the loss of biodiversity within forests, rainforests, and other kinds of forests. So this can result in the loss of habitats for animals and kind of the destruction of an ecosystem. And sort of other drivers that we see here as well. So the second one we're going to talk about is called desertification. So essentially where this is happening oftentimes is on the outskirts of pre-existing deserts. It's sort of the desert expanding its footprint for a lot of reasons. So there's almost always multiple reasons why we see desertification occurring. But the biggest one is probably climate change and the growing temperatures across the world. We see essentially the desert expanding year by year. Other more localized reasons would be overgrazing or overuse of land. So land can become desertified if it's used for the same, to sort of plant the same thing over and over and over again. That's why you oftentimes see systems like crop rotations or slash and burn agriculture in many different countries to sort of preserve the arability of the land, if that's a word. And overgrazing is another one. And then poor, improper, inappropriate irrigation systems. So we lose about 12 million hectares a year due to desertification. I didn't know how much a hectare was, so I looked it up. It's about 46,000 square miles. And this, according to a report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the main effect of climate change is through aridification, a progressive change of the climate toward a more arid state, whereby landfall decreases in relation to the evaporative demand, as this directly affects water supply to vegetation and soils. So essentially, the land becomes more and more degraded until it's ultimately not usable for agriculture. So we see that across the world. And where we see this sort of highest risk of desertification are where you sort of imagine a lot of pre-existing deserts. So you can kind of see around deserts. The red indicates high level of vulnerability. And the last thing we're going to talk about is river and aquifer depletion. So thinking a little bit about water and irrigation systems, we see kind of the heavy use of irrigation and water in kind of modern commercialized agriculture. So some of the effects of this, some of the negative effects of this sort of drastic use of water, or the drying up of wells, the reduction of water in streams or lakes, the deterioration of water quality, and increased pumping costs, as well as land subsidence, which essentially means sinking. Um, so essentially, you can kind of see this. This map is hard to see, but kind of in areas, especially the Midwest, where we have lots and lots and lots of water use due to central pivot irrigation and sort of heavy commercialized farming, you see a lot of strains on the groundwater systems that exist within those places. And similarly, within Central Valley in California, where we have such a productive agricultural region, you have another kind of stress on the land. So the video we're going to watch in class, it comes from this kind of region that we've talked a little bit about, the Central Valley, and some of the water issues that exist there. Okay, so that's what we'll do next. Bye.